A huge distraction is about to hit very soon. Brace for it. Hey, everybody, back with another dose of economic reality. We are getting close. I can feel it. I think you can feel it. Something is in the air. Something big is about to drop. I'm thinking October or sooner. This could happen anytime, but I'm thinking late October at the latest. Halloween's my cutoff date. So we'll see. I've been right in the past. Remember, before 2020, for those of you that were on this channel back then, before 2020, I said something big was going to come up, that I know exactly what 2020 was going to bring with global health scare. No, I did not know exactly what it was. This time, I've got a few different things that I think will happen, and they're big. I think there's going to be either some sort of collapse, an outage, a compromisation of our system, the grid going down, something massive, right? Well, let's just go ahead and get into the news here, because the economy is deteriorating very, very quickly. And we know that historically, war has been used as a distraction. Hey, everybody's broke. We're going to show you how many people are broke here. I've got some new reports out. People living paycheck to paycheck is getting worse. So what's the perfect distraction, and what helps the economy, and what gives the excuse to pump in trillions of new dollars, flood the economy with money, just like 2020? It's war, right? So I think that's what's likely to happen. But let's get into the news here, because the central planners, the powers that be, the bankers, they know that they're going to be on the hook, or they're going to be blamed for consumers buried in debt, going broke. So before the consumer collapses, and before we see a tsunami of foreclosures and car repossessions and bankruptcies and everything else, I think there's going to be a big distraction, right? But let's just show you a few examples of what's happening with the economy. It's just going to paint the picture for us, right? Now, when I say the economy, I don't mean the stock market. The stock market, Friday, July 5th, new all-time highs again for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ both. All right, we told you this was going to happen, folks. This could, click of a mouse, they could bring the stock market again to another all-time high next month, the month after that, the month after that. But when something huge happens, then even the insiders and the 90%, or the top 10% rather, that own 90% of stocks, even they will hit the sell button, with this big situation that's going to be dropping here soon, in my opinion. But the jobs numbers came out, and they actually helped stocks, the bad jobs numbers, right? The economy added 206,000 jobs in June, and the unemployment rate rose to 4.1%. But here's the thing: what they're looking for are numbers to justify rate cuts. To justify rate cuts. Now, many people out there would say that there's not going to be any rate cuts. They're saying inflation is too bad. Why would they cut rates when inflation is still really, really bad? Well, here's the thing. I don't think that the ones deciding if the rates are going to be cut, I don't think the central bankers care how much you're suffering, how much most people are suffering under the high cost of living right now, right? And that's why they consistently look at the inflation number. The inflation number is just a year over year number. Of course, they'll talk about month over month sometimes, but the big widely publicized number is the year over year number. That just tells you what it was higher than last year. It doesn't tell you that last year was 5% above the year before that, and that the year before that was 9% above the year before that. It doesn't tell you cumulative costs of living. What we have right now is a price level problem. We don't just have an inflation problem, it's a price level problem, right? So that's what no one will talk about. No one will tell you this, right? It's not an inflation problem, it's a price level problem. If it was just an inflation problem, 3% over last year, that's not that big of a deal, but it's cumulative, and the price levels need to come down. That's why we talk about here what we need and what they don't want to happen is deflation, right? When deflation happens, then everything falls apart, because then jobs are lost. But when people can continue to borrow money, go deeper in debt, it keeps the economy functioning, and it keeps some jobs available. Now, we're not gaining as many jobs as we're losing. In fact, if you look at the labor force participation rate, it continues to get worse. It continues to shrink. But of course, the big headline number is the jobs number. But here's a headline out of Bloomberg that kind of paints the picture here. Stocks up as path to September rate cut gets wider, right? So these abysmal job numbers are bad enough to where they're saying, okay, this may give the planners the reason or the excuse to go ahead and cut rates, even though inflation's still a problem. Price levels are not coming down to where people can afford it. And in fact, look at this other news item I've got up here for you. And I believe MoneyWise put this out. 46% of middle class workers are slashing or completely cutting out contributions to their retirement funds. How are these people ever going to retire? 46%. 46% of the middle class, almost half of the middle class, is no longer uh, putting in or slashing what they're putting in for retirement. And that harms people in a couple of ways. One is a lot of brokers, a lot of companies like Fidelity, retirement fund managers, they'll match your contribution sometimes up to like 6%. So you throw in $200 a month, they're throwing in another $200. That's $400 a month. And then it compounds, and it depends on what you're invested in, but it compounds over time. You could be in a money market getting 5% right now on that as well. So that's another part of that. So you're not contributing, you're not getting the match, therefore you're not getting the return. This is a big problem, folks. It's a big sign, I think, that people are struggling. And I think the number is just going to grow. I think we looked at this last year, it was like 32%. So in a year, it went 32%. Now 46% are either not contributing or slashing what they're contributing. And that doesn't even factor in all the people that are taking money, pulling out emergency withdrawals out of their retirement accounts. So people are not prepared for the future. And the cost of living doesn't seem to be coming down. The price levels are still elevated. And it's just, it's a big mess, folks. So I think there's going to be a big distraction. Again, war is probably my top thing. But what could trigger the war? Could it be that we get hacked by Russia? They're going to say it's Russia. Russia took down the grid, so now we've got to go to war. They had some new draft items in the news about how females can be drafted now. It's insane, folks. And I know that sounds ridiculous also. Let me just bring up a couple news articles. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's in the news. Congress weighs adding women to U.S. military draft. The Senate proposal would require some women to register for the U.S. military draft. Congress weighs adding women to U.S. military draft. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think there's going to be too much outrage. But the fact that they're even talking about it should kind of clue you in on there could be something big and ugly on the horizon for the United States and for the world. Now, when it comes to manipulation, when it comes to keeping markets propped up, keeping the economy propped up with money printed out of nothing, right? Fiat money that's global. Look at this. Canadian stocks hit all-time highs. And, of course, gold is seeing the benefit from this as well because, well, we know that gold reacts to economic times. But it's not just the U.S. here that we're seeing stocks pumped up here and housing markets propped up, housing bubbles inflated. Same thing in Canada, all-time high stock market again. Home prices starting to come down a bit, but the home prices in Canada even higher than the U.S. Folks, this is a global situation. And why do I keep bringing that up? Well, I still get messages and people, even in comments on this channel, I see you're hoping for some politician to come in and fix all this, folks. It's not going to get fixed by a politician. And nothing wrong with getting excited. And I know some people, you want, the guy on the right, some people want the guy on the left, all this, headbutting, who's right, left versus right, all this stuff, folks. It's another distraction, right? It's not the distraction I'm talking about that's going to be coming up in the next few months. That distraction, it's a distraction to keep people, like, again, fighting each other instead of looking at the flaws in the entire system, the structure, right? This financial system is it's doomed to fail. It's meant to fail. It's created to fail, right? Do you think anyone actually behind the scenes thinks that this debt, this 30 something trillion dollars in debt, is going to be repaid when people can't even donate to their 401ks anymore, when students can't even make their student loan payments, when delinquencies are rising across the board on credit cards, on car payments, everywhere you look, right? Of course. So the ones running this, they know there's going to be a failure and a collapse at some point. So again, what's going to be the distraction? You let me know what you think down below. War, an attack, a cyber attack, right? I would actually prefer a cyber attack. At least that's not as bad as getting a hot war where we get bombed or something like that, something crazy, right? Power grid going down, that's crazy enough because then you've got people panicking. 72 hours, the store shelves will be wiped out. You probably after a few days you won't even be able to use cash anymore because no one's going to want cash. It's just going to be paper. People may be building fires with their cash, but I think it's going to be more of a bartering type of situation if the grid goes down for several days after the stores get cleaned out from the shelves, right? So there's other prepper type of channels out there that talk more about how to survive in that type of situation. I like to focus on what's happening with the economy because it can give us all clues as to the direction that we're headed. The unemployment number ticked up again, 4.1%. Now, why is this important? Well, take a look at a chart here and see what has happened every time the unemployment rate begins ticking up. Right, pretty much every recession where you saw a spiking unemployment rate, after it started ticking up, things unraveled very rapidly. Here in the late 70s, early 80s, here again in the 90s was at 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, May 1990. But then starting in October, it started rapidly spiking. Look at the September of 1990, 5.9%. January 1991, just a few months later, 6.4%. September 1991, 6.9%. August 1992, 7.6%. So once things start going upward on this unemployment rate, then you usually see a spike not too long afterward. Same thing, early 2000s. Of course, the financial crisis spiked up to, where did it max out at? 10%. 2020 really didn't even see an uptick before everything happened because of the rapidness of the pandemic, right? But now, here we go. Look at this. We dropped down pretty low. 2022, 3.6, 3.5, 3.6. Bounced around there. 3.4, April 2023. But ever since then, 4%, 3.8% in March of this year, 4%, 4.1 now. So we are on the uptrend. And again, historically, this is usually followed by a rapid spike in unemployment. And I would give it another few more months. So what's going to happen first? Is it going to be the unemployment goes up first? Or is this whole thing going to drop? Is the rug going to be pulled out from this whole thing? Is the plug going to be pulled out from the power of this money creation madness? You let me know down below. Thanks everybody for being here. What do you think about the chart today? We look at the unemployment number spiking up 46%, either no longer contributing or reducing the amount they contribute to 401k. Not a good sign. Stock market's all-time highs in U.S. and Canada. Not the Dow Jones, but the S&P and the NASDAQ here in the U.S. What else did we talk about today? The jobs number, the abysmal jobs numbers, leading to rate cuts. Chime in on this, folks. Let me know down below. And we'll talk to everybody very soon. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.